The X step can be one of the most confusing aspects of the backhand form for newer players, but it doesn't have to be that complicated. These are our 5 tips to make sure you're X stepping properly. If you're just starting out learning how to X-step, I would encourage you to work backwards. Start with a one-step drill where you start with your feet together and the disc in front of you, and then reach back as you take your last step and throw in one motion. That's because that one-step drill is going to give you the feel for what you should be doing coming out of the X-step. Notice the position that you're in with your feet together is very similar to the position that you should be in for a proper X-step. And so working backwards from that can help the rest of the step feel a lot more normal. Also, it's going to help a lot with timing because your reach back should peak when your front foot touches the ground. And a lot of players, when they're learning how to X-step, they tend to overlook the reach back timing. And so getting that ingrained early is going to help a lot with your consistency down the road. We all love having big tee pads like drag strips that we can take all the space we need to get up to speed and send the disc down the fairway. But if you're looking to get the most power out of your lower body, or you're just learning how to do the X-step, I would suggest limiting your footwork to just 3 steps. That's going to slow you down and it's going to allow you to stay balanced as you're throwing, so you don't have to worry about catching yourself or messing up any of your other mechanics. These 3 steps are what I like to call the setup, the X-step, and the plant. So for me, because I'm right-handed, my right foot goes on the tee pad first, then my left foot comes behind, and then my plant foot comes pretty far in front and off to the left. One of the most common mistakes that I see newer players make when they're trying to X-step is they take too big of a step. They're focusing on taking a deliberate step and doing the X-step that they end up just spending too much time on it and taking too big of a step. This ends up turning their bodies around backwards, and it messes up a lot of things as far as weight shift and brace later on. Ideally, your X-step should be nice and small so your weight can stay over your toes and you can stay sideways to the target. The most effective way that I've found to practice this personally is to take those first 2 steps faster than the third. So for me, because I'm right-handed, the rhythm kind of goes right, left, right for my feet hitting the ground rather than taking a deliberate step like right, left, right. Obviously, you would flip it if you were left-handed, so it would be left, right, left instead of left, right, left. Jumping while you're X-stepping usually means that you're moving too fast. So if you had just put your foot on the ground instead of jumping in the air, your back foot would end up way too far behind you to be able to throw properly. But it can also throw off your balance because when jumping, your feet obviously don't have any resistance, but your top half is moving the same speed as it was before. It tends to lean players back, and that prevents a lot of weight shift from happening. It's the problem that I've had in my form for years, and I'm just now starting to address by focusing on putting my left foot on the ground before I lift my right. There are professional players who throw really well with a jump in their X-step, but I think that's something that sort of comes naturally as a result of their style of throw, and I wouldn't encourage people to dedicate time to go out and learning that. It's a lot easier to start out if you just keep your feet planted on the ground, and I can promise you can throw just as far. Now, it would make sense that the purpose of switching your feet would be to turn your body around so you could reach super far back and really launch the disc down the fairway. But in practice, that's not exactly what happens. Turning around backwards while X-stepping is easily the most common mistake that I see players across all skill levels make with their footwork. Turning around backwards ends up taking your lower body almost entirely out of the throw, and it ends up with a pretty serious distance penalty. So what is the purpose of the X-step? The purpose of the X-step is to keep you sideways towards the target and to put your left foot in the right position so your weight is over your toes and you can push off of that back leg into your brace. X-stepping improperly usually means that your left foot is backwards, and then as players move their front leg forwards, their foot turns towards the target and they end up with an open stance. That means that their weight is forced back over their heels and they really don't have any range of motion out of their hips to power the shot or to take advantage of any of the power that's in their lower body. X-stepping properly usually means that your foot is mostly sideways to the target, but most importantly, your weight is over your toes, and you're able to plant your plant foot on the ball of your foot, and you'll end up with a lot more range of motion, and you'll be able to feel the power coming from your lower body up into the release of the disc. Now, I've touched on it a couple of times, but for those who have missed it, it's very important that your weight is over your toes as you're X-stepping. Keeping your weight over your toes naturally engages your back leg and lets it drive a lot of the power that's coming from your lower body into the throw. If you're struggling with feeling this, or you're struggling to feel what a good X-step feels like in general, it can be helpful to try a few throws with your left heel off the ground if you're right-handed. It'd be your right heel off the ground if you're left-handed. This is going to force your back leg to obviously have the weight over your toes because it's the only part on the ground, and it's really going to give you a feel for pushing off of that back leg into the plant. Now, the result of the throw is probably not going to be ideal because it's not usually a way that we've built muscle memory for throwing, but if you're trying to get the feel for what your X-step should be, I definitely would recommend that as a drill. But those are our 5 tips for either improving your X-step or learning how to do it if you're looking for that. Thank you for watching, and let us know if you have any other tips or any other ideas for topics for videos for this channel down in the comments. Thanks for watching, and remember to subscribe for more content on how to become a better disc golfer.